Hey everyone, Sandra here with Hummingbird Hall. Today we are going to talk about wholesale, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to share it all with you. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I am a clothing reseller. I sell new and pre-owned clothing across multiple platforms, and wholesale is a part of my strategy. If you've been watching my channel at all, you'll know that I am in the process of changing out New Year's resolutions for systems, structure, and process improvements. That's my strategy for 2026. I think it's going to be far more effective than putting out these big goals at the beginning of the year and then losing steam by February and not really achieving what I want to for this coming year. So, with that, stick around. I'll talk to you about wholesale, find out all the reasons that I got into it, how I got into it, why I got into it, and see if it's something that you may want to consider for your business. All right, so I'm going to take you on a walk with me, and we are going to head over to the driveway, and it's on the other side of my property. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about why did I even consider wholesale. So like many resellers, I started off going to garage sales, going to thrift stores, finding items I could resell and cleaning them up and taking photographs, right? Just that traditional way of reselling. And I loved it. I still love it. I still go to thrift stores. I still think there's so much value out there. But the challenge happened when I started to look at ways that I could grow. And it was tough because I live in a fairly small city, and the opportunity to buy enough items of the right quality or the right brand just wasn't there. And so what happened was I was finding myself going further and further to more and more stores, to more and more thrift stores, to more and more garage sales, looking for items to sell. So I was spending so much time driving around that it became counterproductive, really. I think the other piece of it for me was I had a full-time job. So I wasn't doing this all week. I was doing this, on weekends and at night. And it just wasn't really practical to keep driving all day on a Saturday and then find myself in the evenings trying to list items for sale. So I was looking for other options. What could I do to increase my opportunities? Where could I find more items? How could I grow my business? And so wholesale became one of the ideas in mind. Give me just a minute. I am getting blinded here. If you are thinking about purchasing a pallet, I think there are three things you really need to consider and weigh in that decision. All right, the first one is going to be cost, right? So you're purchasing upfront a lot of inventory, and that money is coming out of your budget, not knowing what that inventory is going to be or how much you're going to be able to sell it for. But you need to be able to do some calculated risks, right? In order to determine if you think it's going to be worthwhile or not. And that comes down to knowing who you're buying from, understanding what their knowledge is in your area, what type of items they sell, what is their reputation, are they willing to work with you on maybe curating your palette, or are they not doing that? Are they just giving you a bunch of used goods and you figure it out when you get it? All of those questions come into play, and it really takes a lot of networking and research before you make a decision. Like, don't just go out and, I've seen a lot of wholesalers online recently, buy from us, and all you have to do is put your credit card in and you're good to go. I would I would avoid those if you're a new reseller and definitely if you're new to wholesale. So cost is one, because you're buying by the pound and you have to understand not, cost per item versus what you're going to sell it for, but can you sell enough out of that pallet in order to make up for the items you can't sell. I think the second piece of that cost calculation is, can you do something else with the items that you're unable to sell on regular platforms? So for instance, can you break it down, right? A lot of times they talk about piece it out. So can you do that in order to, I think, manage some of the items that you just can't sell outright? Okay, cost is number one. The second thing I think you really need to take into consideration is logistics. How do you receive the pallet or the bale, right? So you can also order wholesale in bales. They're usually 100-pound bales. That's a lot. A lot of, especially if you're looking at clothing, 100 pounds of clothing is a really big bundle that you're going to receive. But if you're going to look at a pallet, how do you receive it? Do you have room in your driveway? Are you going to be able to break down that pallet quickly? So if you think about a pallet of clothing, 1,000 pounds is at least 1,000 items, right? If you're thinking about each item is a pound, and some are going to be more and some are going to be less, but we're talking about 1,000 pieces of clothing that you need to store somewhere until you actually sell it. So that is, logistic number two. And the logistics, I honestly think, at least for me, I didn't fully appreciate the amount of effort that goes into breaking down this pallet of clothing. So I'll show you when I get the pallet today what it takes to be able to sort all of that clothing and put it into boxes and get it ready. So when it comes to logistics, not only do you need to determine if you have the space to receive the pallet and do you have the space to store all of the inventory until you sell it. One thing that I truly did not appreciate until I received my first bale and then my first pallet was the condition that the items come in. They are dirty. They are smelly. They have been stored in warehouses somewhere. They were probably picked up from a donation box. That person may or may not have washed that item, right? So there is a logistic to how do you clean all of this inventory? And if you're doing clothing, do you have space? Do you have time to wash and dry 1,000 pounds of clothing? It is a realistic challenge, and it's one that I'm still working on. As you can tell, I have a large property, but I do not have a large washer and dryer. My washer and dryer is tiny. It's like the 26-inch standard washer and dryer. So that is one of the things I'm looking at for a process improvement this year is, do I replace my washer and dryer with something bigger? And while that sounds like an obvious yes, that would probably be the most reasonable change that I could make. I don't have a large laundry room. So now I need to look at, is it worth it to make some revisions, some updates to my laundry room so that I can house a washer and dryer that's large enough to handle this level of cleaning. I'm still working through that. So that is on my process improvement plan, but I haven't worked through all of that yet. So there's the logistics of cleaning items, repairing, making some small repairs. I talked about that previously. I know a lot of resellers don't want to waste their time with any type of repair. Even I heard a reseller recently even talk about if it takes too much shaving to shave off the pilling, they won't take it, right? They won't pick it up. But when you're in wholesale, you don't get to pick and choose one item at a time. You get what you get, and then you have to determine what the value is. And so that is one of the items that I'm looking at. Like, how do I rate those items, right, as to whether or not they're worth the time and effort to do the minimal maintenance, and if they are worth it, what does that look like for me and my time, right, my schedule. So that's the other piece. I think the third piece of this, so we've talked about cost, we've talked about processing, but the third piece of this is you are going to have boxes that you need to recycle or get rid of. You are going to have items that are not repairable, that you cannot redonate, they're destroyed, but you still have to do something with them. You have to get rid of those items. And then you're going to have massive pallets that once you've emptied them, they're now sitting on your driveway. And how do you get rid of those pallets? That's not as simple as just taking them to your trash can, right? Whoops, sorry. Now I just bounced you all over the place. So it is a real logistics issue that you are suddenly going to find yourself stacking up items that you can't sell, you can't part out, and they're really not worth taking to a place to give them away, right? They're just not usable anymore. Now, the goal is that you don't have much of that, right? You want that percentage to be as low as possible. But think about it, 10% of 1,000 pounds of clothing is still a lot of clothing that you may have to get rid of. And how do you do that? Do I think it's worth it? I'm doing it. So yeah, I do think it's worth it. But these are the processes that slow me down every week, that start to create piles in my driveway, in my yard, in my warehouse, in my house, right? My garage. I have piles of clothes in my garage that I need to get rid of. I have piles of clothes in my warehouse that I need to repair. These are all the things that you need to consider in doing wholesale. And if you're not ready for that, or if you feel like there's no way you want to invest your time, money, or energy into that, it's good to know up front, right, that it is not just you get a pallet, you unload the pallet, you photograph, and you list those items. I wish it was that simple, but it's not. So with that, would I recommend getting a pallet or getting a bale or doing wholesale of any type? I think you need to think about the following things. I think first of all, you need to think about, do you have the budget, the money up front to spend on that pallet in order to attain it? If you don't have money that you absolutely can live without for a few months, it's probably not a good solution right now, right? Think about it long term. Like, maybe this is something you could do down the road, but you have to think about, you're going to pay for this bale or this pallet up front, and then depending on how quickly you can process it, get it online and sell it, or if you're selling locally, how quickly can you do that, then that upfront budget is not available to you for anything else until you process everything. So I think if you don't have the budget up front, I would save up for that or look for other options. To me, if you don't have the items locally to purchase, if you can't find enough items through thrift stores and through garage sales, maybe look at online auctions. So I've gone to a lot of online auctions, Whatnot, District, all of those. Posh has an online auction, eBay has an online auction. It's a great way to get inventory that you can't find locally, but you're not buying, 1,000 pounds of it. You're buying maybe 5 or 6 pieces. That's a much better option. It gets delivered to your house. You can see how that goes, and then maybe tweak where you're buying your items. Did you like the quality and condition that you got. I think it's like a nice way to slowly enter into considering wholesale. So I think budget number one, it is a huge consideration and one that you need to think about in terms of months instead of days or weeks. Next, consider space. So, space is going to come in the form of, I think, three areas. One is going to be the actual bale or pallet itself. Where are you going to put it until you get it broken down? That is something that not everybody has the space for, or maybe you live in an area where you logistically just can't do that. If you live in an apartment, a pallet is going to be challenging unless your apartment comes with a storage unit or a garage. If you live in a small community or if you have HOA regulations, you may not be able to store a pallet in your driveway. Certainly, if you live in an area that has a lot of weather, like rain or humidity, having a pallet sitting out in your driveway is not ideal, right? So those are the things to think about, not just, can you receive the pallet, but then are the conditions okay for you to leave it outside for a few days? And you just want it to be a few days. You don't want your pallet sitting outside for weeks at a time. But then once you break down the pallet, where are you going to store those boxes? So let me show you where I store my boxes. I have enough space in this storage shed that I could probably store, I would say three to four pallets I could store in this storage shed. Now keep in mind, I live in an area that I don't have a lot of humidity and I don't have a lot of like really terrible weather like rain and snow, things like that. I get some of that, but this storage shed I think has worked very well. And the goal is not to keep the items here for too long, right? Because if they're sitting in this shed, I am not making any money on them. But it gives me an opportunity to get them put away somewhere that's dry and safe and away from critters, all of that. And then I want to wash, process, photograph, list, and get these items available for sale as fast as I can. And as you can tell, we haven't even done anything to this shed. We had it set up here, and at some point I'll look at, maybe making it look prettier, but not right now. But here's another thing to think about. So let's say you have enough area in your yard for a shed. Well, that'd be great, right? Because then you have a place to store it. But where I live, I had to get a permit to put this shed on my property. And the permit was expensive and it was time consuming, and I had to have somebody come out and, review my my plan for building the shed. And it is not on a permanent foundation, but I had to go through the county in order to put all of the paperwork in place and get approved for a shed. And then finally, when I got the shed, I also had to pay for all that. So permits are not cheap. So think about all of these things when you're looking at considering doing something that's bigger, like wholesale. And it's not just the logistics of where to store the items while you're processing them. Once you've listed your item, but it hasn't sold yet, where do you store it then? So I have a warehouse that's about 500 square feet, which when I first moved in, I was so excited. I thought this was so big and it had so much room. But one of the processes we just put in place right before the new year was, how do we capture as much space as we can for new listings? And my goal isn't to just grow inventory storage. My goal is to sell items. But the reality is, they're going to be stored for a while. And when you're trying to process as quickly as you can from wholesale, that means you're growing very quickly. So you're growing by, 50 or 60 items a day. And where do you put all of that? So you need to think about that as well. And it was one of the challenges I had not truly appreciated or considered because I have a warehouse. And so I thought, oh, I've got plenty of room. And then all of a sudden I had no room. We actually condense our boxes. So we do infinity numbering, right? It's number one till whenever. And I have to go through and condense all of my boxes every 3 weeks. That is the schedule that we put together. So every 3 weeks, we condense all the boxes from the items that have sold and we buy ourselves some shelving space back. If you don't have the time or the help, right, the support to go through and condense all of those boxes, it's something to consider because when I am reorganizing all of my shelves, I'm not photographing, I'm not listing, right? I am cleaning. And it is a task that before I was really struggling with. Now I put it on a schedule, and every 3 weeks it works like clockwork. But consider it because if the space isn't there yet, then it's something maybe you can grow into, right? And for us, it's really going to be something I need to think about in 2026 because I want to keep growing. I want to keep expanding my business, but how to do that and how to find the right space for that, I haven't worked through all those details yet. The final piece of the wholesale challenge is getting rid of the pallets, the boxes, the items that just aren't usable. And there is a true cost to that, and there is a true logistics planning that has to happen. And that is something I'm working through right now. So, as I showed you, and my embarrassing pile of boxes out there, they add up quickly. They stack up in your yard, and how do you get rid of those? Also, you don't want them sitting around. At least for me, one of the things I considered in having all of those boxes out there is that they are a great opportunity for bugs and little critters to start nesting. So I don't want that. And I have really struggled with how to get rid of all of it. In the past, what I've done is I have hired uh, like a truck to come and just take away all of the trash that's out there and recycle it. However, that's expensive. So to hire a truck where I live to come and pick up just cardboard boxes and things that are going to get hauled to the dump, so cardboard for recycling and then anything else that goes to the dump, is anywhere from five to about $700 a load. And that eats into your budget so quickly. So what I'm going to do starting now, so kind of circling back to my New Year's process improvement, I am going to put recycling on a schedule. So once a month, I'm going to rent a truck. I don't have a truck, but I'm going to rent a truck or a U-Haul for the day. And I am going to take all of the boxes and take them off to recycling. And in addition to that, I'm going to take whatever cannot be salvaged to dispose of it. So I think that schedule will work better for me to do that monthly, but we'll see. And I'll let you know how that goes. I think the cost will be better for me. At some point, I need to consider, am I going to get a larger vehicle, like a truck or an SUV, something like that, that I can use to get rid of any of the items that I'm disposing of. I've given you so many negative points to wholesale. You might be asking, why do I even do it? Is it worth it? And I will tell you, I have ended up loving this process even through all of the clothing that I have to wash, the pallets that I have to break down. It has been a great way for me to build my business. So it's worth it to me. All of the work, and it's a lot of work, but all of the work that I've put into it, I have grown as a reseller in so many ways, not just through numbers of sales, which has happened, of course, but I have learned so much about brands. My knowledge about clothing has grown tenfold because since I'm not hand picking each item, I have to work through the clothing that I receive in each pallet. And so it has introduced brands and styles that I have never considered before, or maybe didn't even know existed. It has opened my eyes to different clothing items that I hadn't sourced locally. And here's something kind of interesting, and I think we all do this, but I think for my own behavior, I was gravitating towards buying brands or buying styles that I knew. Even though I did all of the research and I watched all of the Bolo videos, just like some of you are probably watching, I think in my mind, I still kept that running tally of items that I liked or that I knew. And I wasn't as open to learning about new styles as I would have admitted. So when you get a palette, you learn all about styles, you learn all about brands that you never even knew existed. During the process of learning about wholesale, I have met some of the most amazing people that you could ever know. And if you're a reseller, you know that a big part of it is a journey that you're walking by yourself. It is a solo, activity unless you have a team. You're shopping and sourcing by yourself, you're cleaning and listing by yourself, you're selling by yourself. It's kind of a lonely type of career. But through wholesale, I have just met some amazing, amazing people all over the country. I have worked with people in New Jersey and California. So it's coast to coast. And it's been just a great way to build my inner circle. And on top of that, it's an opportunity to ask questions, to brainstorm, to, get advice, give advice. We're all helping each other through this journey. And I truly think I've met some of my closest friends through wholesale that whether I was buying from them or not, no matter where our individual paths take us, they're going to be friends for a lifetime. And that's something I had no idea would happen. And I feel really just so lucky to know these people and learn about, how they're running their businesses. It's been really cool. Oh my gosh. Okay. So my plan was to show you the palette, like open it up, give you a little show and tell to end the video. But as a reseller, we know things always go wrong. So number one, the palette didn't arrive. It was delayed by a day. And then the second thing that happened was this. All right, everyone, here's our pallet. It arrived safe and sound, came off the truck about an hour ago. But here's my bonus tip for you today. Make sure you tarp your pallet as soon as it comes off the truck because you just never know when a freak snowstorm may roll in and try and take over your inventory. But as you can see, no snow is getting in today. Nope, nope, nope. All right, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.